What is up, Summoners? My name is Nathan Ng, and today I'm going to run you guys through the upcoming changes for patch 11.3. We've got a lengthy list of changes given to us by Riot Scruffy, and like always, we're here to let you guys know what's coming in the next patch. Know that, like always, there might be a change or two that might get pulled or tweaked, but for the most part, these changes usually make it through. Before we get started though, are you subscribed? If you are, then we know that you're a cool person. And if you're not, no worries, because you can be kind of dope too by clicking that button right below. Regardless, our content is all for you, so let's go ahead and jump into the changes. Oh, thank God they're nerfing Olaf. But honestly, I know none of you guys are here primarily for that. No, you're here because of our favorite part, the skins. Get ready to empty your wallets. That's right, the Lunar Beast skin lines will be available next patch. Partnering up with Viego, Lunar Beast Alistar, Annie, Aphelios, Darius, Jarvan, and Fiora will be joining him up in the store. Riot TC skins in their 2021 opening this year, and I think that these live up to their hype. In addition, we have Crystal Rose Swain and Zyra, as well as Withered Rose Syndra and Talon. These kind of just came out of nowhere, and they look kind of amazing. Alright, so you probably actually did want to know about the nerfs and balance changes, so let's go ahead and jump right into the items first. The first item to receive a nerf is Dead Man's Plate. Dead Man's received a massive buff with the initial set of the item reworks during the preseason. It received some massive changes, even having bonus movement speed shifted to be included as a stat and no longer exclusive to the passive effect. It's been overperforming with all the buffs it got, and thus the health is getting reduced from 475 to 400 next patch. It's a tank item that provides too much utility, so you either have to choose the stats or, well, the utility of course. I think most of us would prefer to keep the need for speed. Next up is Staff of Flowing Water. Riot has made the effort to give all supports more agency this season, and I think that's a good move by them. However, I think that they've realized that there's some accessory power in places where there shouldn't be. Some of you guys in the comments have been mentioning it, but Moonstaff, which is a term I believe that is coined by LS, has become an incredibly oppressive build. Not only is it good on utility champions, it's incredible on almost any AP champion that can utilize Staff of Flowing Water. It's having its AP reduced from 60 to 50 next patch to make sure that it's not excessively powerful. And I think even with this nerf, people who have started using this combo will continue to do so. Zhonya's is receiving a small nerf next patch as well. The cost of both the Secret's Arm Guard and the Hourglass are up by 100 next patch. Very straightforward change, so I guess they're a little bit too strong right now. Iron Spike Whip has been proven to be too strong and will no longer deal double damage to minions and monsters below 50% HP. It was providing too much wave clear and jungle clearing power, so players have more incentive to upgrade the item rather than sitting on a mythic component. Alright, with Iron Spike Whip being nerfed, it's no surprise that Gore Drinker is also on the chopping block. We probably all saw this coming, and the item active healing is being reduced from 12% to 8% of your missing health. It's a giant nerf, and I believe there's a good chance it might need some compensation buff in the future, but let's just enjoy a moment of peace next patch that we're not being blasted by Aatrox and Olaf. But now that I've said that, I've probably jinxed it, and they're probably gonna still be OP. More healing nerfs are on the way with Ravenous Hydra. Rather than providing 15% flat Omnivamp, it'll instead provide 10%. Having access to 15% Omnivamp so early on into the game can be really oppressive, especially if you don't have the extra gold to purchase healing reduction. Sure, it's cheap now, but what if you're already behind? Having to set aside another 800 gold before you finish up the other core items can be a struggle when games aren't going too well in your favor. But we've actually got a buff to another item to address this issue coming up. Serix Gauge is also receiving a nerf. The base shield is being reduced from 200 to 100 and the duration reduced from 5 to 4 seconds. That's going to be covering up the item nerfs, so let's talk about the buffs now. First is Force of Nature. The movement speed per stack is being increased from 6 to 8, meaning that the maximum bonus is being increased from 30 to 40. This is a big buff to the item as it's been underperforming when compared to its competitor, Spirit Visage, which, by the way, is going to be a little bit weaker with all the nerfs to Gore Drinker and Hydra. Another item that is receiving a buff is Frozen Heart. The price is being reduced by 200 and the armor is being lowered by 10. Now some of you guys might consider this a nerf, but I'm here to tell you that that's why it's an absolute buff to this item. Yes, tank builds are a little bit cheaper than carry builds. You can realistically hit all the items that you want in the game, but Frozen Heart is an item that you want to tech in. There aren't really any champions who use it as a core part of the build, and instead, an answer to the enemy team composition with plenty of champions who rely on basic attacks. Because it's a situational purchase, the fact that it's cheaper makes it so much easier to include in a build. Since this item tends to stray away from the typical 6-item builds, you want it to be as easy as possible to include it. I think the biggest change in the next patch is the buff to Chemtech Putrefier. You'll be able to grant allies 60% grievous wounds on their next application of damage when you heal or shield them. Also, the ability haste is going up by 5. But anyway, this effect change is huge. Ever had a problem where your team refused to build grievous wounds? I'm sure we all have, and with this change, you won't have to worry anymore. You can force him to apply it and do all the big brain work yourself. Well, if you're playing somebody who can heal or shield. Another item receiving a buff is Immortal Shield Bow. It's a pretty big buff as the AD is being increased from 50 to 55, while the attack speed is also going up from 15% to 20%. Next up is Phantom Dancer, which is receiving a big change. First, it'll now provide 20 AD at the cost of its attack speed, being reduced by 45% to 25%. Longsword has been replaced with a dagger in this build, and to acquire the bonus attack speed from the item, you'll only need to attack 3 times instead of 5. Of course, the bonus has also been lowered from 40 to 30%. Phantom Dancer will be a much more appealing purchase on champions that want crit chance, but prefer raw attack damage rather than attack speed. I'd especially watch out for Yone and Yasuo next patch with these 2 changes. Lord Dominic's Regards is also getting a buff. The armor penetration will be increased from 25% to 35%. It's been pretty difficult for marksmen to actually kill tanks, and with this change, it should hopefully be much easier. Verdant Barrier is receiving a change to make it the arm guard of magic resist. The passive will be reworked to provide 1 MR per unit killed, up to a maximum of 15. Also, the cost will be reduced from 1200 to 1000. This will make the item much easier to purchase for those tough AP matchups. With Verdant Barrier receiving a buff, so is Banshee's Veil. The AP will be increased from 65 to 80, and the cost from 2500 to 2600. 15 more AP for only 100 more gold is a huge buff. We've seen these items lose stats when their prices went down, and while we usually take cheaper costs for less stats, 15 AP for 100 gold is an insane amount of value. Speaking of 15 AP, Horizon Focus is having its AP increase from 100 to 115. This item has been missing from the game because no one is building it. Its Hypershot minimum range is also being lowered from 750 to 700. So hopefully with the buff to its AP and also it being easier to utilize, we'll see more players include it in their build. Another item that we haven't seen that much is Silvermere Dawn. It was supposed to be the QSS for divers and bruisers, but players tend to prefer tank stats or more damage. Next patch, the AD will be buffed from 35 to 40 and the health from 200 to 300. Finally, we have some item adjustments starting with Leeching Lair. Its Omnivamp will be lowered from 10 to 5%, but will grant 100 more health. Riftmaker is also receiving a similar change as its Omnivamp will be lowered from 15% to 8%, but also have its health increased from 150 to 300. The Mythic passive Magic Penetration is also being changed from 5% Magic Pen to 8 AP and 2% Omnivamp. Like we mentioned earlier, having 50% Omnivamp so early on into the game is way too strong. However, Riftmaker isn't as strong as Core Drinker, and it will also be receiving a compensation buff in return. Finally, Eclipse Shield is going up from 150 and 75 for ranged champions to 180 and 90 for ranged champions. As you'd expect, the Omnivamp is being reduced from 10 to 8. That'll be covering up all the item changes, so now we'll be covering the champion changes. Beginning with the top lane, we have Cho'Gath. The buff to Frostfire Gauntlet and Turbo Chemtank have made Summoner's Rift a wonderful little buffet for Cho'Gath to feast on. He's so powerful with both of these items. Man, if only you could build both in the same game. Well, I guess it's actually not that good because Cho'Gath would be even more OP. Next patch, his ease damage is going down from 22 to 82 to 22 to 70. But I will say, that won't stop him from eating you because you're a total snack. It's about time that Pantheon got nerfed. After some changes to push him into solo lanes, Pantheon has become an OP top lane and mid laner overnight. Next patch, his Q will deal 70% damage to not only minions, but monsters as well, while his Q's cooldown is going up from 10 to 8 seconds to 13 and 8. Singed, on the other hand, has been underperforming because of the changes to Turbo Chemtank. It was previously a one-stop shop for him as the tenacity and slow resistances paired alongside the active effect that were so good on him. Other notable mythic item purchases on him are Riftmaker and Imperial Mandate, but of course, these items have been nerfed and thus, Singed is in an awkward spot right now. His Q's AP ratio has been increased from 80% to 90%. A nice little buff, especially if you like to build lots of AP on him. If you don't, well, at least you'll get a little more value out of Rally's Crystal Scepter. Riven gets some buffs now. The item nerfs to Gore Drinker and Hydra are gonna hurt her a lot, but she hasn't been the problem. Thus, she gets buffs. Her ease cooldown is being reduced from 12 to 8 to 10 to 6. Holy moly, this buff is gonna be gigantic, and I'm certain that she'll be the next OP pick in the next patch. With all the nerfs to healing, I expect that even if she doesn't pop off immediately, players are going to find some new builds that'll bring out her full power very soon. Mordekaiser has been a little bit on the weaker side when compared to the other Juggernauts and Bruisers. As a result, his ease cooldown is going down from 24 to 12 to 22 and 10. This will be especially nice in the late game where it's within reason to cast E twice during a teamfight. In spite of some previous changes, Olaf remains an overpowered pick and is receiving a bigger nerf next patch. Alongside item nerfs, his base health will be lowered from 597 to 575, while his attack speed will be lowered from 0 to 100 to 0 to 70% based on missing health. Actually killing him when he's at 1 HP will be within reach as a result of all these changes, and he'll definitely be noticeably weaker next patch. The Turbo Chem Tank buffs have pushed Rammus over the top. He's supposed to do well in solo queue, especially in high elo. I mean, he has damage, reliable, easy to land crowd control, and hard counters physical damage comps. It's a little bit excessive now that Chem Tank is so easily purchasable. The nerf set on him is that his E's cooldown will be increased from 12 to 10 seconds based on ability level to 12 flat. Elise got a nerf on 11.2, but it wasn't enough, so she's up for round 2. Her Spider Form Q got nerfed last patch, and this time, her Human Form Q is also receiving a similar nerf, with his damage expected to be reduced from 40 to 180 to 40 to 160. Also, her W attack speed is also being reduced from 60 to 140 to 60 to 100%. With all these nerfs added to her recent one, Elise should be actually feeling weaker as her mid to late game is taking a big hit. Iron has finally gotten his chance to shine this season, but it's looking like his 15 minutes of fame is about to come to an end. Thank God this guy creeps me out. I mean, seriously, he's 90% legs. Does that freak anyone else out or is it just me? Ivor's health per level is going to be reduced by 10, while his E's shield is being decreased from 80 to 220 to 80 to 200. It should be a little bit easier to kill him after his change. If he's your priority target in fights, it can be a little bit difficult to actually take him out of the picture. Well, unless you ban him. Now that Udyr has finally hit the S tier, he's ready to get nerfed. Seems a little bit unfair if you ask me, so if you're one of those 10 Udyr mains out there, make sure to spam him as much as you can before the next patch. His Phoenix Stance aura damage is being reduced from 50 to 300 to 50 to 275. This change won't affect him too much, but he'll definitely feel weaker unless you're opting into Tiger Stance Udyr. Taliyah has also been an insane jungle pick ever since her buff on 10.25 that removed the damage falloff on jungle monsters from her Q. To the dismay of Taliyah players, she's also getting nerfed next patch. Although some players might not think that she deserves one when compared to the other picks, she's nearly at a 54% win rate in elite levels of play, so that at least means that she's mega busted in high elo. Her passive movement speed is being increased from 12 to 40 to 40 to 45%. And unfortunately, her Q's damage to monsters is also being reduced once again. Q's damage beyond the first zone to monsters will be reduced to 80%, which is gonna hurt Taliyah a ton. Shyvana has been underperforming for several patches now, so it's time that she got some love. Next patch, her Q will have an added AP ratio of 40%, and her W's movement speed will also include an 8% per 100 AP movement speed ratio. I'd expect her to pop off with these changes, so keep an eye on her, guys. With the jungle covered, let's go ahead and talk about the mid lane changes. First up is Anivia. She's been a commanding force in the mid lane, proving to be one of the best ever since she got the buffs in the earlier patch. While we never expected her to be the bird of prey to dominate the mid lane, she has, for several patches now. Finally, she's getting a nerf next patch. Her Q damage will be reduced from 70 to 210 plus 50% to 60 to 200 plus 45% AP. Also, her ultimate cooldown will be increased from 4 to 1 seconds to 4 to 2 seconds. It's about time that she's finally getting toned down. Seraphine is also getting some well-needed nerfs next patch. Her passive's no damage is being reduced from 5 to 20 to 4 to 16, while her W-based shield is being reduced from 60 to 120 to 50 to 100, and her self-shield from 90 to 180 to 75 to 150. Seraphine has proven to be too strong after consecutive buffs, and we've seen her rise as a support, mid laner, and even a bot laner. That's a sign that she's broken, and Riot's finally taken the necessary steps to keep her in check, which means they probably sold enough skins. Sylas is up for buffs next patch in contrast. His Q's mana cost will be reduced from 50 to 75 to 55 flat, while his W's damage is being increased from 65 to 205 plus 85% AP to 70 to 210 plus 90% AP. Together, they make some nice buffs, so I'd definitely keep an eye on him as well as Mordekaiser. AP Bruisers might have their time very soon. Another champion getting a buff is Vladimir, though I'm not too happy about this one because I kind of hate going against this champion anyway. His R's cooldown has been reduced from 150 to 120 to 120 flat. Vlad's early and mid game will also be much stronger with this buff, which is not what we need. We all know that Vlad is an incredible late game champion, and with this buff, he should be able to get there more consistently and absolutely crush his lane opponents early on when they make mistakes. With all these mid changes covered, let's talk about the bot laners next. Jinx has been on the weaker side ever since preseason started. Now that we're approaching patch 3 of season 11, Riot has decided to grace her with the buff. Her Q's range extension is being increased from 75 to 175 to 100 to 200. More range, and that's a big deal. That's probably the biggest buff a marksman can actually get, and I wouldn't be surprised if she shot up to the S tier after this one. We'll have to wait and see though. Ezreal has also been underperforming since Manamune got nerfed. I think these changes came in a bit slow, but he's also receiving a buff next patch. His Q's 80 ratio is going up to 120 to 130%. Alright, that's a wrap for the bottom lane, so it's time to finish things off with some support changes. Like we expected, Karma is getting another buff. Her last one didn't have enough of an impact, and she's also back on the list for more support. As opposed to Riot's typical mantra of nerfing OP champions instead of buffing the weaker ones, they've decided to help out the poor girl. In their defense, they've been pretty good about their changes recently, and I just wanted to include the pun there. Her mana regeneration will be increased from 11.5 to 13, and her Q's mana cost has been reduced from 65 to 55. So yes, while the cooldown on the ability is still pretty long, it's not going to really hurt as much to miss. Rel is getting some adjustments next patch as well. Rel's E cooldown to unbind by self-casting will be reduced by 3 seconds to 1. And she's also going to receive a bug fix to properly buffer the spell when cast on an ally from outside its range. I'd consider these to be buffs, and I expect her to do even better next patch. That's going to wrap up the upcoming changes videos for patch 11.3. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, as we always appreciate you. Make sure you join our Discord server as well. We've got a great community there for you guys to be a part of. Sorry if this voiceover seemed a little bit rough in terms of the enunciation. I bit my tongue earlier before this voiceover, so please, thank you so much for your grace. Anyway, until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.